welcome back to Greenhill Today.
We will have two segments in today's episode. First, we'll be speaking to Greenhill Junior Amy Stachowiak on her recent accomplishments in the Scholastic Writing Competition.
Next, we will be speaking to theater director Valerie Haas-Smith on the production process and what the spring play will look like this year.
So let's go to our interview with Amy Stachowiak.
Hi, I'm Amy Stachowiak, and I'm a current junior.
Cool. So, Amy, I know that you had 5 pieces accepted into the Southwest Writing Competition. Can you sort of talk a bit about how you heard about the contest and sort of how you were entered into it?
Sure. So I heard about the contest because Miss Woolley taught my older sister, and she encouraged her to submit some pieces. So then I started to submit some pieces within Scholastic as well. Usually in Scholastic, there are a bunch of different categories that you can apply to, such as short story, poetry, critical essays, etc. And basically, you're able to pick any topic that you want to write about and enter it into one of those topics.
So I want to sort of, ask you, what was sort of the creative process like? Because I know it must be, I guess for most people, they would consider it difficult to, especially those who are like perfectionists, to start writing and create this world entirely on your own. So could you talk a bit about any struggles you faced during the process?
Yeah, actually, one of the biggest struggles I faced was I kept switching between third and first person for a while, which was a little awkward. I had to rewrite that paper multiple times because there were just sections that didn't make sense and didn't fit. And there were also times when continuity was an issue, making sure that like the world that I was establishing was enough where people could understand what I was talking about, but not overly descriptive to the point in which you couldn't control or you couldn't imagine the world itself without me guiding an individual like throughout it, if that makes sense.
That makes
So
sense.
kind of having individual freedom in me telling the story, but also letting the reader themselves have individual freedom to determine like what the world looks like. I think for me, I guess I just took a big theme that I want to do and I wrote about it. And as that theme developed, I started to add in multiple different areas. So I would add in a new building that a person would go to. I would add in another character in order to establish more of the main character's personality, because I think that relationships really describe how we interact with one another, and it tells a lot about a person based off of how they interact with others. So I took the general theme of like a plague and how one person is going to save the world and how they do that. And I built the world around that person and around how they were going to go about solving it, which allowed the story to maintain its focus because there was a word limit for the JCL essay. So I couldn't go above it, but it also allowed the story itself to become a lot more clear and well defined about the character themselves and how they interact.
All right, well, that's all I had, Amy. It sounds like you have a really great future in writing, so thank you so much.
I hope so.
Now let's hear from Valerie Haas-Smith about this year's spring musical.
Valerie Haas-Smith, a theater director and instructor here at Greenhill.
Awesome. So my first question is, could you sort of give us the name of the show for this year's winter musical and then a quick synopsis of the plot?
Sure. So the show is called Working, and it is based on a book written by a guy with a very funky name. His name is Mr. Studs Herkel, and he was a journalist and a writer. And what he did, it was like sort of like late 60s, early 70s. He traveled all around the US and he interviewed people about the jobs that they were doing. And so he wrote this book. So it's a pretty famous book. Mr. Garza was like, yeah, I totally know the story. And what happened is that in the late 70s, it was turned into a musical. And the musical is basically some songs interspersed with mostly monologues of individual people, like, the fireman, the teacher, the fundraiser, the hedge fund guy, the the old retired guy, the healthcare worker, so it sort of goes through people, basically the heart of America, and how they go through their lives.
I mean, yeah, I guess it sounds, from a director standpoint, it sounds like kind of an exciting experiment, maybe a bit frustrating at times also. But I want to ask you, what's one thing you take away as a director from this experience, this new experiment you're trying with your cast?
Well, this is what I can say. One, the challenge is incredibly complicated, but at the same time, really exciting. We're like, oh, yes, okay. And then we can create this, and then, ooh, I have a solution for that. So, in terms of the production team, all the adults, also all the tech students, we keep on bouncing ideas off of each other and go, oh, I think I have an idea for this, right? So that's exciting. And for me, this is what theater is all about, is all collaboration, right? So in terms of the technical aspects of it, think about it this way: instead of one set, right, the one set creation and everything, the tech students have to think about the look of every single number, including how's it going to look when Will or Ava or Ava's singing, so that's a different thing. But Will is working from home and Viraja is working from home. So Will McDonald and Viraja Mehta. So how is their setting going to look like? So they're going to have to figure out, okay, so you're playing who? Okay, this is how it's supposed to look like. So show me pictures of your house. Okay, this is a good location. Like, now this is how you're putting the light. So they have to figure out all of that, not just for one big set, but for every single one of the 26 things that we're doing.
Well, yeah, that sounds really great. And so, when will the show be, I guess, premiering the recording?
Okay, so we are going to premiere on April 30th. That's the big goal.
Thank you so much for talking to me. It sounds like a really exciting process.
As always, thank you so much for watching this episode of Greenhill Today, and we'll see you next time on Greenhill Today.